The Church Growth and Giving Show, your resource for growing faithful communities. Brought to you by Vanco, helping tens of thousands of churches thrive for over 20 years. Join Jordan and Hannah as they share insights drawn from decades of church giving and engagement expertise.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Church Giving and Engagement Podcast. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Jordan. We've got something really exciting to dive into today.
We sure do. I was talking to a church leader last week who was, honestly struggling with how to approach the whole concept of love offerings. And I thought, this is something we really need to talk about.
Oh man, that's such a relevant topic right now. It's interesting because love offerings are actually quite different from regular tithes, but there's a lot of confusion about how they work.
Could you, maybe break down the basic difference for our listeners?
I would love to. So, think of it this way. While tithes are traditionally that 10% biblical standard of giving, love offerings are more like, they're heart led gifts. They're completely voluntary and usually tied to special occasions or specific needs.
I see. So like when a congregation wants to show appreciation for their pastor on their anniversary, or maybe help out a church member going through a tough time?
Exactly. And what's really fascinating is that while modern churches have adapted these practices, the concept actually has deep biblical roots. Like, there's this amazing example in Luke where Jesus points out a widow making an offering.
Oh, tell us more about that.
Well, Jesus was watching people making donations at the temple, and he noticed this widow who gave two small copper coins. And what's incredible is that he said her gift was worth more than all the wealthy people's contributions because she gave from her heart. She gave what she could.
That's beautiful. It really shows that it's not about the amount, is it?
Not at all. And that's actually a perfect segue into something really important that churches need to understand today. When it comes to love offerings, there are some, um, let's call them modern considerations that we need to be aware of.
You mean like tax implications and stuff? Because I've heard that can get pretty complicated.
The IRS definitely has opinions about love offerings, but here's where it gets interesting. If someone gives directly to, say, a pastor as a personal gift, that's treated differently than if the church collects it on their behalf.
Wait, so there's a difference? Could you break that down?
Think of it this way. If I personally hand my pastor a birthday card with a gift inside, that's considered a personal gift. But if the church announces, we're collecting a love offering for Pastor Smith's birthday, and handles the money, well, then we're in different territory.
Different how?
Well, in that second case, it actually needs to be reported as income on the pastor's W 2. It's kind of like, you know how if you get a bonus at work, it's still considered income? Same principle.
Oh, wow, I had no idea. I bet there are a lot of churches that might not realize this.
Yeah, and you know what's really interesting? We're seeing more churches starting to modernize how they handle these love offerings, like implementing digital giving solutions,
Oh, I actually saw a church using text to give for a love offering recently. It was so convenient.
right? The technology is amazing. But here's what's crucial: churches need to maintain really clear records, regardless of how they collect these offerings.
What kind of records are we talking about?
So think of it like creating a paper trail. You want to document who gave what, when they gave it, and what it was for. And it's not just about good bookkeeping, it's about transparency and trust.
I guess that makes sense. It protects everyone involved, right?
Exactly. And you know what's really cool? When churches handle this well, it actually encourages more giving because people feel confident about where their money is going.
I've noticed some churches seem, kind of hesitant to talk about money at all. Why do you think that is?
That's such a good observation. There's often this worry that talking about money might make people uncomfortable or seem too pushy. But here's the thing: when we look at biblical examples, giving was actually celebrated as an act of worship.
Can you give us an example?
Well, take 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 7. It talks about God loving a cheerful giver. The key word there is cheerful. It's supposed to be something that brings joy, not stress.
Oh, I love that perspective. So how can churches create that kind of positive atmosphere around love offerings?
It really comes down to communication and authenticity. Like, be clear about the purpose of the offering, celebrate the impact it makes, and most importantly, make sure people know there's no pressure about the amount.
You mentioned impact. How can churches share that effectively?
This is where storytelling becomes so powerful. Let's say a love offering helped a family in need. Sharing that story, with their permission, of course, helps donors see their giving in action. It's like um, connecting the dots between generosity and real world impact.
That reminds me. I heard about a church that actually started sending personalized thank you notes to people who contributed to love offerings. Is that a good practice?
Oh, gratitude is huge. But remember, it's not just about thanking people, it's about helping them feel connected to the bigger picture of what their giving accomplishes.
You know what I'm really curious about? The practical side of implementing love offerings. Like, if a church hasn't done this before, where should they start?
That's such a great question. First thing, and this is really important, they need to get their board's approval and set up clear policies. It's like um, building a house. You need a solid foundation before anything else.
What kind of policies are we talking about?
Well, think about things like how will the offerings be collected? Who will oversee the process? How will the money be tracked? And super importantly, how will it be reported for tax purposes? Because we definitely don't want to upset the IRS.
No, definitely not. But speaking of collecting, what are some of the most effective methods you've seen?
Oh man, there are some really innovative approaches now. Like, many churches are using a mix of traditional and digital methods. You've got your regular offering plates, but then also mobile giving apps, online donation pages, and even what I think is really cool, peer to peer fundraising,
Wait, what's peer-to-peer fundraising? That sounds interesting.
right? So imagine if a church member sets up their own fundraising page and shares it with friends and family. The success rate is actually pretty amazing, like around 71% compared to just 22% for direct appeals.
Those numbers are incredible. You know what I'm wondering, though? How do churches make sure they're keeping the spiritual aspect at the center of all this?
That's really the heart of it, isn't it? I think it comes down to always connecting giving back to ministry and mission. Like, yes, we need to be professional and organized, but we can't lose sight of why we're doing this in the first place.
And that's about serving others and showing God's love, right?
Yes, it's about creating opportunities for people to express their faith through generosity. And when churches do this well, it's beautiful to see how it strengthens the entire community.
I love how you put that. Any final thoughts for our listeners who might be thinking about implementing love offerings in their churches?
Remember that it's okay to start small. Maybe begin with one special occasion or need. Be transparent, keep good records, and always keep the focus on serving and celebrating generosity.
This has been such an informative discussion. And for our listeners who want to learn more about church stewardship, we've got something special to share.
That's right. We're offering a free comprehensive guide to church stewardship. It covers everything from setting up giving programs to managing finances effectively. You can find the link in our show notes. Along with the ebook, check out our free church letter templates resource, which contains dozens of thank you templates to help you show your gratitude. And last of all, you can access the link to our free love offering guide included in the show notes.
Thanks for sharing those resources. That's all the time we have for today. Until next time, keep spreading generosity and making a difference in your communities.